from the National News Studio, Sri Lanka.
Hello there, good evening and welcome to the National News Broadcast. I'm Niketh Karunaratne.
And I'm Natalia Veeravardhana. Here are the headlines for tonight.
Sri Lanka's bondholders send debt rework proposals to the government. Return transport services for the general public who left for outstation areas. The government says more investments will be made for a quality education. 8 persons killed in Russian shell attacks launched in Ukraine.
And we are going for the news in detail now. Several special trains have been included in the train timetables with effect from today in order to facilitate travelling back to Colombo for the general public who left home for villages to celebrate the Sinhala and Tamil New Year. Meanwhile, the Sri Lanka Transport Board also says adequate number of buses have been deployed for the return journeys to Colombo.
Deputy Transport Superintendent of the Department of Railways, N.J. Indipolage, says in addition to the normal train journeys, several special trains have been added to the fleet of trains tomorrow and the day after. These special operations will be carried out in the main line, coastal line and also for Anuradhapura. Some train journeys have been cancelled. The Deputy Superintendent of Railways added that 2 additional compartments have been added to the Rajarata Rajina train. The SLTB and the private buses have also extended their services for the benefit of the passengers. Now, the National Television Rukirula 2023 Beauty Contest was conducted at the Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation premises through the sponsorship of Swaba Ceylon today.
12 beauty queens have been selected for the final round. The national television for the first time was engaged in the selection of Ru Kumara as well.
More than 14,000 applications had been received for the contest to select the Rukumariya. The Rukumara contest has also received thousands of applications. Nearly 1,500 male and female contestants have been selected in the first round. Upon conducting of several rounds, 12 Kumaras and 12 Kumariyas were selected for the final round.
And we are ready to connect you to Studio C3, whereas we bring you the live updates from the Rukirula 2023.
Now, according to three knowledgeable sources, a committee of Sri Lanka's international private creditors sent its first debt rework proposal to the country's authorities regarding over $12 billion in bonds outstanding.
It is the first bondholder proposal after Sri Lanka defaulted on its debt a year ago. An identified person told Channel News Asia that this was a first formal step to engage with the country's authorities. Details of the proposals were not immediately available. A spokesman representing the creditor committee has declined to comment on the issue. The group is comprised with 30 creditors, including global investment companies, Amundi Asset Management, BlackRock, HBK Capital Management and T. Rowe Price Associates. Sources add that bondholders and government officials have met in Washington this week with legal and financial advisors. Meanwhile, the Paris Club of Creditor Governments said yesterday that it aims to start negotiations to restructure Sri Lanka's bilateral debt after a committee was set up by French, Japanese and Indian finance ministers and representatives of Sri Lanka. It has also been reported that China has reiterated calls on commercial and multilateral creditors to jointly participate in Sri Lanka's debt restructuring under the principle of fair burden sharing. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said the Asian economic giant has been in close communication with Sri Lanka and supported Chinese financial institutions in actively discussing debt treatment arrangements with Sri Lanka.
Now, Sirilaka Piri Aurudu Siri 2023 Maliban Rupavahini New Year Festival was held at the Delgoda Public Esplanade throughout the day today with the participation of a large crowd. The events of the Maliban Rupavahini Aurudu Festival have got underway at 6:30 in the morning. Chairman of the Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation, W.B. Ganegala, Senior Presidential Advisor, Ruwan Wijewardena, and a large number of spectators, including the sponsors, have participated in
investments for the guaranteeing of a quality education will be enhanced. He has made these observations participating in a session organized by the World Bank under the title State Expenditure for Productive Education Lesson Learned from Countrywide Experiences. State Minister Sema Singh also said that Sri Lanka has witnessed the benefits of free education even from the days before achieving independence. He added that the country was able to secure many victories through the implementation of the policy of free education throughout the years. It has clearly helped to achieve the targets of quality education. In the past decade, Sri Lanka's literacy rate stood at 98.8%. demonstrating one of the biggest success stories among countries in the South Asian region. Sri Lanka is far ahead among other countries in the region in terms of literacy. The State Minister further said that the government allocates a significant amount of funds for education. In the midst of an economic crisis and a pandemic, the government has continued shouldering the state expenditures on education. The challenges of providing smartphones and online education have been met with success. Minister Sema Singha has further pointed out the need to achieve fast social economic progress by overcoming the negative effects of COVID-19 and economic problems.
The fertile rural environment that had prevailed before is no more. However, the organizers have taken pains to create such an ancient village in Pinnavala, Kegalle, where you also could feel the enchanting beauty of the natural environment. The Iparanigama in Kegalle is like a mirror that reflects past village life. The so-called ancient villages of today in our country actually have lost their historical character. The village that has been recreated is enriched with the qualities of an early village, including self-sufficient economic system, administrative structure, teams of artists, cultivations, indigenous medicine facilities and many more. The Vedagadara built at the entrance of the natural village gives one a thorough understanding on the ancient medical treatment systems from the Ravana times. A camp with gypsies is another eye-catching feature. The gypsy community earns their livelihood by showcasing the dances of animals such as snakes and gibbons. The old village also demonstrates ancient carpentry equipment and furniture turned out by the villagers. It is also comprised of professionals such as ironsmiths, launderers and handloom manufacturers. Villagers in the Pinnavala model village enjoy 3 hearty meals a day.
Today is the 15th day of the Sundara Nuwareliya Salalihini Vasantaya 2023.
The national television is the media sponsor for the Nuwareliya Salalihini Vasantaya.
Sri Lanka Insurance සමගින් සුන්දර නුවරඑළිය සැලලිහිණි වසන්තය 2023.
At a time when the entire country is spending the weekend celebrating the Sinhala and Tamil New Year, the enchanting town of Nuwareliya is also filled with people. Sporting events such as 4x4 races, horse races have been conducted on behalf of the spectators in the past few days. There are special trade stalls as well. Sports programs and special promotional zones are being operated by many Sri Lankan institutions. The organizers call on all to come on the Nuwareliya Salalihini Vasantaya and enjoy the natural beauty and splendor in the city.
Sri Lanka Insurance සමගින් සුන්දර නුවරඑළිය සැලලිහිණි වසන්තය 2023.
Stay tuned for more local news coming up next.
Prima Kottumi, hot and spicy Nava Vasarak Veva.
And we are back with more local news. Bakmaha festivals have been organized throughout the island in connection with the Sinhala and Tamil New Year. Special feature of this year's events has been the participation of relatively more foreign tourists. Department of Meteorology predicts continuous rainfall accompanied with thunder and lightning in several provinces in the island. It also informs that temperature in many areas may go up significantly. Showers or thunder showers may experience in several locations in the western, Sabaragamuwa, southern and northwestern provinces as well as in the districts of Kandy and Nuwara by evenings or at night. Other areas may have rain-free weather conditions. We move in for a short break and we'll bring you foreign updates right after this.
Prima Kottumi, hot and spicy Nava Vasarak Veva.
Welcome back, and on foreign news, at least 8 people, including a 2-year-old child, have been killed in Russian shelling of Sloviansk in Ukraine's eastern Donbas region.
The Ukrainian authorities said around 21 others had been wounded in the attack on a residential district of the city. They also added that several more were missing, warning that they could be trapped beneath the rubble. They said 5 houses and 5 blocks of flats were hit in the strike, while businesses and shops were also damaged in the blasts. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned that what he called a brutal and evil attack. The Ukrainian officials further added that the strike had likely been carried out using repurposed S-300 missiles. The system was originally designed as a surface-to-air defense system, but Russia has increasingly used it to strike ground targets in Ukraine as the war has progressed and Russia's stores of munitions have been depleted.
Europe's mission to the icy moons of Jupiter has blasted away from Earth. The JUICE satellite was sent skyward on Ariane 5 rocket from the Kourou spaceport in French Guyana. Scientists and officials said the flight to orbit had been successful. It is second time lucky for the European Space Agency project after Thursday's launch attempt had to be stood down because of the weather. The agency's Director General also expressed his pride that the €1.6 billion mission was safely on its way.
1 person dead and 3 missing after mudslide crashes through a Peruvian town. At least 1 person was confirmed dead and 3 were missing after a mudslide plowed through a Peruvian town on Thursday. The authorities blamed heavy rains for the torrent of mud and debris that hit the town of Atabelos Bajo, some 80 kilometers north of the capital Lima. They said the death toll could rise, with 3 men still unaccounted for. The regional government said it had sent a specialist team to search through the rubble for survivors.
Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has been evacuated unharmed from the public event after what appeared to be a smoke bomb was thrown at him. Foreign media reports that a man was detained at the scene in Wakayama where Mr. Kishida had been due to give a speech. A witness said they saw a person throwing something followed by smoke, while another said they heard a big bang. No injuries were reported. Video showed officers piling on top of a person believed to be a suspect. The suspect was arrested on suspicion of obstruction of business and later identified by the authorities as 24-year-old Ryuji Kimura. His motivation is still unclear. NHK broadcast footage shows crowds of people appear to be running away from the scene. The footage also shows people swarm around one man, hold him down and then carry him away. Mr. Kishida had just started to deliver a speech after touring the fishing harbour in Wakayama for a campaign event when the object was thrown and he took cover. After the incident, Mr. Kishida addressed the crowd in another location and said the incident should not disrupt the electoral process. A person who said they saw an object flying through the air said it gave them a bad feeling, so they ran away unbelievably fast. Another witness told NHK that the crowd began to disperse in panic before the blast was heard, as someone said an explosive had been thrown. Violent attacks were extremely rare in Japan, but there is nervousness about security around politicians after former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was shot dead while on the campaign trail last year.
Scientists have found a peculiar leak in the Pacific Ocean floor that may one day cause a massive earthquake. The leak, which was spotted off the Pacific coasts of the USA and Canada, experts say has never been seen before. The SIP is known as Pythias Oasis and is present in the Cascadia subduction zone, a huge fault line that extends from Vancouver Island on Canada's west coast all the way down to Northern California. Cascadia subduction zone is where two plates collide, but it's possible that this fluid is regulating pressure between the continental and oceanic plates. The water gushing out at the fault where underneath the temperatures are between 300 and 500 degrees Fahrenheit. This is why the water that is splashing out of the ocean floor about 50 miles offshore from Newport, Oregon is warmer. In any case, if additional water keeps coming out, reports say this may be increasing the pressure at the fault and stressing the two plates. Then an earthquake could occur if the tension increases and the plates start to move. Scientists watched methane bubbles rising from a mile beneath the ocean. Evan Solomon, a University of Washington oceanographer and co-author of an article describing this phenomena published in the journal Scientific Advances, said if the fluid pressure is high, it's like the air is turned on, meaning there's less friction and two plates can slip. He went on to say that if the fluid pressure is lower, the two plates will lock. Evan Solomon further said that fluid released from the fault zone is like leaking lubricant. That's bad news for earthquake hazards. Less lubricant means stress can build to create a damaged earthquake.
Foreign media reports that French President Emmanuel Macron has signed into law his government's pension reforms, which raised the state pension age from 62 to 64. French President Emmanuel Macron has signed the pension reforms into law after France's top constitutional body cleared the change. The Constitutional Council rejected opposition calls for a referendum, but it also struck out some aspects of the reforms, citing legal flaws. Following the Council's ruling, protesters set fires across Paris and 112 people were arrested. 12 days of demonstrations have been held against the reforms since January. Unions have vowed to continue opposing the reforms and called on workers across France to return to the streets on the 1st of May. President Macron argues the reforms are essential to prevent the pension system from collapsing. In March, the government used a special constitutional power to force through the changes without a vote. He signed the reforms into law in the early hours of Saturday morning. The Labour Minister has said he expects the reforms to come into effect by the start of September. After the ruling of the Constitutional Court, trade unions made an unsuccessful last-ditch appeal to the President not to sign the pension age increase into law. The unions pointed out that 6 concessions that had been added to the reforms were rejected by the court, so what was already unfair was now even more unbalanced.
Meanwhile, heavy gunfire and explosions were heard in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, following days of tension between the army and a powerful paramilitary group. Shooting and blasts took place today in the vicinity of Sudan's army headquarters and the defense ministry in central Khartoum, as well as the presidential palace and airport. Gunfire and explosions are heard in the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, at a base housing members of the Rapid Support Forces paramilitary group. Tensions have increased between the government and the powerful armed group in recent days, with both sides blaming the other for clashes erupted today. Reports suggest Khartoum's airport is under the control of the Rapid Support Forces. Paramilitary and gunfire has been heard in the northern city of Meroe. Sudanese group and the ruling military junta failed to reach an agreement last week over transitioning to a civilian-led government. One of the issues holding up a deal is integrating the Rapid Support Forces with the army. Residents of central Khartoum were shaken by the sound of gunfire as clashes erupted between army and the Rapid Support Forces paramilitary group. It's not yet clear what triggered the fighting, but tensions have been high in Sudan following a standoff between the two factions.
Creama Kottumi, hot and spicy Nava Vasarak Veva.
And on sports news for tonight, the first match of the 2-test series between Sri Lanka and Ireland teams will commence at the Galle International Stadium tomorrow.
The Sri Lanka and Ireland teams were engaged in their final warm-up sessions today. The Sri Lanka reserve is comprised of several young players. Meanwhile, Sunrisers Hyderabad team has secured a 23-run victory against Kolkata Knight Riders team in an Indian Premier League cricket tournament match played at the Eden Garden in India. The Sunrisers Hyderabad team, after coming to bat first, has scored 228 runs for the loss of 4 wickets within the 20 allotted overs. Harry Brook, in a fast batting spree, has hit 100 runs facing 55 deliveries. This was his maiden IPL century. The Kolkata Knight Riders, in their run chase of 229 runs, were able to score only 205 runs, losing all wickets.
Now, Pakistan celebrated the 100th T20 of its all-format captain, Babar Azam, with a thumping 88-run win over a weakened New Zealand in the first game of their 5-match series yesterday.
New Zealand team is touring Pakistan for 5 T20 matches and 5 one-day international matches without 8 of its frontline players who are busy in the Indian Premier League. New Zealand struck early through Adam Milne in the power play when the fast bowler trapped Mohammad Rizwan leg before wicket, and Babar Azam went for an over-ambitious shot on the offside against the pacer and was bowled out for 9 off 7 balls. Left-handers Saimyub and Fakhar Zaman then combined in an aggressive 79-run stand of 43 balls before Saimyub was run out. Fast bowler Haris Raw's career best figures of 4 for 18 upstaged Matt Henry's earlier hat-trick as New Zealand got bowled out for 94 with more than 4 overs to spare, losing its last 5 wickets for only 6 runs. Rapidly improving young batters Saimyub and Fakhar Zaman made 47 runs each before New Zealand struck in the latter half of the innings on the back of Henry's hat-trick and got Pakistan bowled out for 182 in the final over. New Zealand's inexperienced top order was rattled by Pakistan's strong pace attack, with Mark Chapman top scoring with a chance of 34, but not before Rizwan missed a regulation stumping early in his knock. Haris Raw then quickly wrapped up the innings by claiming 3 wickets in his return spell, and left-arm spinner Imad Wasim also picked up 2 wickets off successive deliveries to give Pakistan emphatic start in the series.
Prima Kottumi, hot and spicy Nava Vasarak Veva.
And that's all the news for tonight. Join us again at the same time tomorrow. Good night.
Good night.